Alright, I want to go through this discouraged worker concept. So the discouraged worker is an individual that was looking for work, so they were unemployed, but instead of finding a job, they just gave up. So once they give up or become discouraged, they're no longer considered unemployed because they're no longer actively looking for work. The implication on the unemployment rate is once you have an individual that becomes a discouraged worker, the unemployment rate actually falls or decreases. So think about it. While they're looking for work, they're in the unemployment rate statistic. Once they give up, they're no longer in that statistic anymore. Since they're not in there anymore, the unemployment rate will actually fall. So typically we would say that a falling unemployment rate is a positive thing because typically when the unemployment rate falls, it means people have been able to find work. They're no longer considered unemployed anymore because they were finding jobs. Here in this case, though, it's falling because they're giving up, which would be a negative thing. It gives the impression that the labor force and labor market is improving, but in this case, the labor market would not be getting better because if it was getting better, the person would have become discouraged and given up. So to show you how this works, I did a real simple example. In this example, there's 99 employed people, one unemployed individual, and there's 50 people not in the labor force. So let's actually set up the unemployment rate currently. So to figure out the labor force, you have to take the 99 people plus the one unemployed gives you a labor force of 100 people. Okay, pretty simple. Number of unemployed, unrealistic, but easy to see in this case, one individual. So for the unemployment rate, that one individual goes on the top. And then to make this a percentage, you multiply it by 100%. And you end up with an unemployment rate currently of 1%. Well, that's pretty easy to see that you have one person unemployed out of 100. That's a 1% unemployment rate. Now, let's say that this person gives up. If this person gives up, the number of unemployed goes to 0. Okay, the number of unemployed goes to 0. The not in the labor force would go up to 51. And now let's do the unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate now would be employed plus unemployed. Well, now there's 99 people employed but 0 unemployed. So on the bottom it would be 99. That would give you your labor force. The number of unemployed, since this person's given up, is now 0. And then to make it a percent, multiply by 100. And 0 divided by anything will give you 0. So the unemployment rate now is 0%. So this is the current unemployment rate once the person gives up. So look at what happened here. Previously, when the person was looking, the unemployment rate was 1%. Now, once the person gives up, it's 0% because they're no longer in the labor force anymore. So you can kind of see how it would give the impression that the labor market was improving. Now, this kind of goes to show you why you should use the labor force participation rate and the unemployment rate together. Let's look at how the labor force participation rate is calculated. Looking at how it's calculated, when this person gives up, the number of adults in the population isn't going to change, but the labor force has gotten smaller. So what will happen is when this person gives up, the labor force participation rate will fall. So you should really use these two statistics together, the unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate. So when we see a falling unemployment rate and a falling labor force participation rate, that's going to indicate that people are becoming discouraged workers in the economy and that the unemployment rate is falling not because things are really improving, but things might actually be getting worse and that's why they're giving up to begin with.